changing, we're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining people. Their lives are changing, we're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no.
I want to take a deep breath and I want to approach this subject, and I want you to consider what it is I'm about to talk to you about. And I call this series Great Advice. Yesterday, or in the previous JumpStart, we talked about stop, S-T-O-P. And that literally means stop whatever's going on, just freeze, become a mannequin. If you can, put a half smile on your face. Take a step back mentally and ideally physically, observe what's going on, and then proceed mindful of your goals. In other words, do you really want to have a flare-up with someone, etc., etc., etc.? That is from the dialectical behavior therapy model. Today we're going to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I realize that as I talk about this, a lot of people are going to have better understanding of this, especially people who are actively in AA, etc. So my apologies if what I'm presenting is not accurate. I'm trying to take a concept that I understand and overlay it to how it's of general use to all of our lives. As most people know, there are 12 steps to recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. I choose to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous because if you think about it, so many other life-changing programs have come from Alcoholics Anonymous. You've got AA, you've got NA, you've got, which is Narcotics Anonymous, CA, Cocaine Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous. There are more. There are, and yet all of it begins with this 12-step model. I won't get into the history of the 12 steps, although it's pretty interesting. I read something about it and actually listened to a podcast. The very first one, though, the very first thing that a person who wants to, the problem is drinking, people think, but then again, there's also this concept of dry drunks, people who are able to not drink, but their alcoholism plays out. And even for them, the very first thing is, number one, to admit you're powerless. In AA, it's admitting that you are powerless over your addiction to alcohol. And in NA, it's to drugs and alcohol, to powerless over food. And to me, it has always blown me away that something so effective in improving, saving, and changing people's lives, step number one is I'm powerless. And by the way, there are a lot of people who criticize Alcoholics Anonymous and say that it's not effective, and that 96% of people who go into AA end up, or NA or CA or OA, end up not staying with it. And the stats are true when you factor in that it is the only personal development or life-changing program that I know of that people are forced into rather than going to jail. In other words, when someone is arrested for driving drunk, sometimes they can go to AA, get their little card signed or whatever. Same is true for Narcotics Anonymous if somebody's busted for drugs or whatever. So you've got to consider that AA, NA, CA, etc., having people forced into them. Of course, these people, they don't want to be there. This is going to drive the numbers down, 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 down. So I still consider it to be the most, one of, if not the most powerful, yeah, I'd say it, life-changing program in the world. And step number one is to admit you're powerless. Now, if the problem is alcohol, or if the problem is drugs, or if it's eating or whatever, then being powerless seems the exact opposite of what it is you want to be. And yet it's that attempt to control, 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 control. By the way, let's not forget step two, because step two is extremely important. Step one and two, you're powerless, your higher power is not. There is something that is able to do it. And that higher power can even be your untapped human potential. But step number one is you as a person, you are powerless. And a very good friend of mine is a drug and alcohol counselor, and he talks about how this powerlessness doesn't just overlay whatever your addiction is, it overlays everything in your life. In many cases, it is your attempt to control, dominate, etc., your thoughts, your feelings, your life that causes one to resort to drugs and alcohol. I'm not, and this may be totally wrong, but partially as a way of escaping the pain of the inability to monitor, manage, and adapt to whatever life is throwing their way. In your life, there's something I'm sure you struggle about. For the last, as you know, today's the 19th of May. Well, they originally guaranteed me my windows would be done April 1st through 5th. So that would be, 7 weeks? And they're done now. And yet all during that time, I've had plastic up because I've never quite known when they were going to come. And like I just said a few minutes ago, in case you missed it, the funny thing was I took the plastic down when they came in. And for the first few days, I'd noticed that I would get up and I would be irritated, I would be upset, etc. And one day I got up and I was just bombed about this. And finally, my liberation came in realizing that I have absolutely zero control over when these dudes are going to do this. The one thing I did know was that for the entire building to get an insurance break, it would have to be done. So when I began to realize, okay, I have absolutely no control and putting no energy into it, that's the key, putting no energy into it. For the first, I don't know, several weeks, I would, not several weeks, but a week or two, I would go down and I'd look for the foreman and I'd ask him and he'd shrug and give me a story, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I would feel irritated and come back upstairs. And finally I realized I still am going to go down and check with him. I'm going to keep my energy low and to realize that even if they say it's going to happen, the likelihood of it happening that day is a really kind of a will o' the wisp. It depends on who shows up for work, and these are the keys, and it's hard to get people to show up for work, especially during the pandemic, etc. And when I just chilled and would go down and talk to the guy, eventually we stopped talking about windows. We talked about what he had eaten for breakfast that morning. I caught him eating breakfast, and he was telling me how he makes his breakfast and eats it in the car or truck when he drives down. All of a sudden, our whole conversation shifted, and it got to be very pleasant. He was showing me pictures of his dog because I just realized I was powerless. And even this guy decided was powerless because even though he was the foreman, for some reason, other windows were getting done, not mine, etc. And then he's showing me pictures of his dog, and we're talking, and boom, yesterday, he shows up personally escorting the guys up here to come up and do my windows. It was that acceptance. You know, so much of all enlightenment, all religion is just accepting what is. It's not resisting. And it's also living in that duality. It's accepting what is and. It's accepting what is and. It's not accepting what is but. It's accepting what is and. It's accepting what is and knowing that you can impact what is by your actions. You can improve it or you can make it worse. It has to start with acceptance, though, because when we are rejecting it, we're just pushing it away from us. This morning, I put Teddy's food down. You know what he did? He sat by the bowl and looked at me like this. Now, this is human food that I actually cook for this DOG. That's what I call him when I'm irritated with him. DOG, which of course is dog. Anyway. And as I was walking over here, I was like, I am totally powerless over this dog eating or not. And he has done this since he first came to live with me, and nothing has happened. So what are you powerless over? I want you to think of something that you're resisting, something that you, damn it, want changed about yourself, or about somebody else or about society or about people get up hating the weather, resisting the weather. So what are you resisting? Well, and begin to accept you're powerless over it. And see if you don't then begin to find more and better creative solutions, more and better help, people coming to you in an attempt to try and make things better. You simply are no longer resisting what is. And ironically, then you begin to change. Then you begin to feel the change inside of you. And then you can begin to affect the change outside of you. So what are you powerless over? Don't feel like you have to share it. If you want to, you're welcome to. Main thing is identify what it is you have in your mind. And then just for today, I really just, till you hear the next JumpStart, I just want you to be powerless over it. To say, you know what? I have no control over that. I'm powerless over it. And release your energy, release your combative, your negativity, your irritation. But I mean, really release it. Don't walk around going, I'm powerless over this. I am powerless over this. No, release your energy and say, I'm powerless over this. Nothing I can do. Can't change how my son reacts. Can't change what my grandson does. Can't change how the woman at work reacts. Can't change how this person talks. It just is the way it is. It just is the way it is. And when we accept, we're able, awesome, to change. If you're new here, thanks for being with us. Please be sure and like my page. We continue to get hundreds of new people liking every week, and that's awesome. That's how we spread this community. That, and when you are here, click share. Thank you so much for clicking share and being with us. Trina says, I've just resigned from a role that wasn't serving for me, but that I was hanging on to for some weird reason. So now, let's see what door will open. Bingo, exactly. Sometimes you have to let go to be guided. I've told you this old story of the guy who falls off a cliff and he's hanging and he says, can somebody up there help me? He's hanging off of a vine and he hears a voice that says, let go of the vine and I will save you. And the guy says, is there anyone else up there? It's that letting go that's the hard part, trusting. Hope to be back in schools next year. Excuse me. With kids sharing horses and just say, whoa, to drinking, drugs, and bad decisions. I like that. Just say, whoa. That's awesome. That's cool. Good morning. Good morning. Share, share, share. Willow has shared. Awesome. Innate divinity versus ego. That's exactly right. We are a team. Yes, we are. Good morning. 2 years, 5 months sober and grateful for AA helping me. I love the fact that you are saying that AA is helping you rather than giving it all to AA. There are a lot of people who AA benefits very little. And there's probably the happiest person I know, the coolest, happiest, lightest. You just want to be around his presence guy. And it blew me away when he told me he was celebrating 50 years of sobriety. And I thought, this guy never could have had an issue with alcohol, or drugs, or whatever. Surrendering what is, bonding through the heart. Yes, yes, yes. Mary says, God grant me the serenity. Absolutely. Acceptance is a huge huge progress, says Shirley. Yes, I thought you said process, and I think that's even bigger. Morning, guys and gals, says my buddy John Smith, who is an awesome musician. It is what, and has a great voice. It is what is, and accept it. Yes. Can't change someone, but can change my reaction. Thank you. You're exactly right. Shared. That's a part of DBT too. And that is that no matter what happens, you have to dig for a different reaction. In other words, if you absolutely cannot change it, somebody cuts you off in traffic and then they come back and yell at you after you both pull off because they clipped your car. You still in that moment have the opportunity to control your reaction. Easy? Hell no. Ed says, my greatest strength is found on the other side of powerlessness. Resistance must be released through acknowledgement, admittance, and acceptance. There you go. Letting go lets God do his work. Absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. It's so funny. people used to come for me for prayer when I was a minister. And we would do this prayer of releasing a particular situation to God. And then they'd come back again the next week and they'd want to pray about it again. And we would. And eventually I thought, you know what? You keep giving it away and taking it back. Give it away and see it done and give it time. Mary says she keeps learning every time, trying to share. Where is it? You know what? I don't know exactly. To be honest with you, you are showing up as Facebook user. When you join using the system that I use, which is awesome, called StreamYard, you have to click a thing that says you would like to post. Next time that I post, you'll see that as you're coming in. Should, and if not, message me. We'll figure it out. You have to accept the situation, says Denise. That's right. I have 1,200. Excuse me. I have 12,000. Should put a comma in there yet. I was going to really make a big to-do out of this. 12,245 days of sobriety, yet it is still one day at a time. Ed, awesome. Isn't that amazing? Sands through the hourglass. Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations, Ed. Powerless. So you are powerless over your situation. Once you accept your powerlessness, then often it is far easier for you to begin to accept what it is that you can do and begin to implement it in your life. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about, and don't run away from this, we're going to be talking about the purpose of religion. And by that, I literally mean all religions on the planet. Did you know they have one and only one purpose? Not to say some of them are doing it right, some of them are doing it wrong. But nonetheless, we can certainly learn from this commonality, that one thing that all religions do. And we're going to talk about it tomorrow, because when we apply this thing to our lives, we live in a better, healthier, happier world. Join me tomorrow. Make it a great day. Enjoy today. Bye-bye.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing.